Okay, hey, this is a bit weird, but let's roll. So my name is Jussi Impiö. I'm from Demos Helsinki, and today I'm going to talk to you about design for systemic change. And I'm sorry about the potential noise from the background. There seems to be a hailstorm outside, and we have 3 noisy kids running around the house. So such is life these days. Okay, let me share you my screen here so that you see the slides like that. Okay, so the topic is design for the systemic change. And what's that all about? So we are going to talk about design, how design can solve and cause problems. What is a system and how to change it? And then we're going to look to a topical discussion on how design could have an impact on building forward, building towards the future when building the post-pandemia world. Okay. A couple of words about Demos Helsinki. Demos Helsinki is an independent Nordic think tank with around 50 people. We are solving societal problems and challenges to build more fair and sustainable society with our partners. And partners are, half of them are from the public sector, like ministries, governments, government agencies, cities, municipalities around the world, and the other half are from the private sector, industries, businesses, financial institutions, you name it. With all the customers, we always have our own agenda, and that's the 2 customer agenda. First, customer is always the society. So we only do projects which bring society forward towards more fairer and more sustainable society. And the other customer is, of course, the paying customer. And we work all around the world in 22 countries currently. Few words about my background. I'm industrial designer, graduated from the University of Lapland like decades ago. I've studied also cultural anthropology and history of film at the NCAD in Dublin. And Victor Papanek's classic book, Design for the Real World, was the first course book when I started to study industrial design back in '94, I guess. And I guess that book had such an impact that it has really, its core message has guided through my career. Okay. When I graduated, I joined and I was putting up a lab to develop wearable technology for medical purposes, sports use, and Arctic survival. It was a common push by Finnish industry giants Nokia, Suunto, Polar Electro, and clothing manufacturer Reima. Sorry. Okay. After that, I joined Nokia, where through a couple of coincidences, I ended up to Africa to conduct a study on citizen journalism and its potential impact on remote and isolated, marginalized communities. And things led to another, and after a while, I established Nokia Research Center in Nairobi. We had 35 people working, and we covered 26 African countries. And we built understanding and concepts how communication technology can enable socio-economical development in African countries. Then things happened to Nokia, and I started my own company in Kenya called Fuzu. Fuzu means success that it's created by your own work. It's a very handy Swahili word. It's a mobile service which currently has around 5 million users in East Africa, where low educated job seekers are able to learn job skills, and employers are able to find them from the job pool later on. And yeah, it's working in East Africa and running pretty well. But while I was while we were kind of like scaling the business up, I was asked to come to join Finnish Red Cross to build their innovation strategy. And as the social innovation is very close to my heart, I joined them for a year to build the strategy. And during that time, we understood that there is not nearly enough forecast and prevention work done around the humanitarian work. So humanitarian work has been very reactive, and now due to the climate change, the need for the humanitarian work has so dramatically risen that more and more predictive work needs to be done. So we started to develop artificial intelligence system which is able to identify the humanitarian and societal impact of the climate change. And that work actually took me around 3 years ago to Demos Helsinki, where I have been now focused mostly on climate strategies for cities, governments, and large businesses and industries around the world. Okay, design for the systemic change. What does this mean? Typical design approach currently these days is inventing problems to be solved. Markets are so congested with all kind of solutions and all kind of stuff that the inventions that take place are inventing problems for people who already have all their needs served. The next level, sort of like in depth in innovation and design approach, is identifying problems to solve from the environment. So this is already significantly more sophisticated approach, where you interact with people and the society, and you study the latest research and so on to identify the real problems of this society to be solved. But still, with this approach, you might end up cementing some harmful practices in the society. So, understanding what is the source of the problem and fixing it. Now we are at the core of the systemic thinking and core of the systemic change. So what things lead to these problems that we are seeing? I could tell you a small anecdote quickly here. In Nokia, we had a system, education system in place in some remote islands in Indonesia, where education content was downloaded to a TV set, computer and TV set over the satellite during the nights. Because all those small islands didn't have a possibility for their own teachers. So schools lacked teachers and lacked books. So we were able to replace that system with this automatic sort of like teacher and content videos, which were eventually then two-way. And that was a success. Then we implemented the same system in Ethiopia. And after a while, we realized that it was so working so well that actually some school has started to fire the teachers and put all the kids in the big classrooms or even outside to watch this one small TV screen. And of course, that was not the purpose of our our work, but we ended up actually cementing a corrupt practice of ghost teachers. So ghost teachers are teachers who don't exist, but they only exist in books, and somebody in the management takes their monthly salaries somewhere. Luckily, we noticed that, but after almost a year. So you might end up to this kind of loops unless you are very careful. So the key takeaway from this presentation is that the source of the most human problems are the solutions. So whenever you create a solution for a problem, you need to think about the unintended side consequences that your solutions might have. And I'll explain or tell you with a couple of examples what does this mean. I don't know if you recognize this flower. It's a water hyacinth. It's a very beautiful flower with very distinctive scent. And some gardeners brought it from South America in 80s to decorate some of the private gardens, ponds in Nairobi in Kenya. But little did they know that this plant has, so it's a floating plant. It floats on top of the water, but it also has very, very sticky seeds. So it lets go the seeds twice a year, and those seeds get stuck on the feet and the underbelly of the water birds, and they spread across the waterways and countries like a disease, and with pretty much similar kind of impact. So this is Lake Victoria 2018. And this is the third time that the water lily took over the lake. Lake Victoria is one of the biggest lakes in the world. It's almost 500 kilometers long, 250 kilometers wide. It's massive. And one of the biggest bays of Lake Victoria has been completely covered by water hyacinth 3 times, and it's the situation also right now. Okay. The other example is something that I have been tightly involved with. When I joined Nokia, I started a team which was looking into citizen journalism. It's something that we expected that the sort of like blooming or budding social media was going to be. So we were developing tools for citizen journalism. So the platforms were meant to be kind of like moderated, where active citizens are able to observe the environments and write and document things that happen in their environments. And then there would be experts who would be fact-checking and so on, and public would be then enriched with detailed understanding on different kind of environments. So that was the design of social media. But the reality ended up to be a bit different. So the rise of populism fueled by uncontrolled social media, political turmoil in countries where access to traditional media was very, very limited, and the traditional media was extremely heavily controlled by government, and then all kind of weird stuff started to happen when people turned the media and the look from outside the world towards themselves. So bunch of unintended side consequences built from that. Okay, What is a system? There are two types of main systems in world. Earth system, which builds from the climate, water, tectonic, and ecosystems. And then there are human systems, which are political, economic, and value systems. So what does the systemic change mean? Does this mean a revolution? Does this mean that we need to break everything and build everything back from the scratch? Actually, systemic change should take place within the systems that we have. And systemic changes are slow and gradual processes, unlike revolutions, which are rapid, quite bloody, and most often result nothing in the long term. So we aim at to constructive and gradual slow processes, and this is the core change that we kind of like aim at. Currently, our economical system and our value creation system is based on heavy use of energy, fossil-based energy, and heavy use of virgin raw materials and resources in the world. So, as you see from the picture on the left side of the graph, that well-being, economical growth, and the use of natural resources are linked tightly together. And sustainability of the planetary resources is disconnected from that. Now, the systemic change that we need to aim at is to tie the well-being of people to the sustainability of the planetary resources and keeping the economical growth into picture. So if we drop the economical growth from the picture, our system, our societal system, and our political system start to collapse. And when we don't have functioning economical system and political system in place, there's no trust in the society. There are no funds to fund these innovation, research, R&D, infrastructure investments, which are necessary to enable this type of systemic change. So practical things, what getting into the graph on the right-hand side means that we need to change our energy system from the fossil-based energy system to renewable energy system. And our consumption from the material consumption towards immaterial consumption and sharing of the resources. And then getting from the linear material use to completely cyclical use of material. So reducing the use of virgin materials to minimum. So things that are clearly possible, things that are possible to do within our economical system and our political system. So no revolution needed, at least not quite yet. Okay, what does this mean in climate-specific work? And this is the approach that Demos uses with our customers. Typically, let's say a city or a big industry player wants to contribute to the climate work. They start from the inner circle, from reducing their own emissions, and that's understandable and that's very important. But what we help the customers and the institutions to understand that first we need to have a goal. We need to have a long-term goal and vision where we aim at. So we need to think start from the outer circle, from the societal level, and need to think how me as an individual, the institution that I present, how can I maximally enable the systemic change in the society, building the sustainable and carbon-free society. What is the maximum input that I can give? And also, what kind of business opportunities open up with this type of approach? So Finnish government has set up a goal that Finland will be carbon neutral by 2035. So imagine the year 2035. What have you done from your part, your institution's part, to enable the carbon-free society by 2035? And what kind of business opportunities did that create to you? So understanding your role in the future society, carbon-free society, gives you also a possibility to identify those partners and those other actors that you need to collaborate with in order to get there. And when you understand that, then you are able to start to scale down. So from there, you go towards your industry, how to drive the change within the whole industry, how to be the example there. So within the industry, to be an example, you need to show that this actually, it's a business viable approach. So it creates a competitive advantage for your company. So the whole industry will eventually follow you. The second sphere is to enable your customers to reduce their own emissions. So buying your products or your services should enable your customers to reduce their own emissions and live zero carbon lifestyles. And then in the core is your own emissions. But from the footprint perspective, you need to start thinking from the systemic picture and from the maximal potential impact that you can have. Okay, so first you create the zero carbon vision, and then you build the zero carbon roadmap. Very often the thing that stops us from understanding the big picture, building the big picture, understanding the systemic impact of our actions is the fact that we are very, very busy. So putting down fires here and there stops us from catching the arsonist, pointing out why these fires actually are here and there. Okay, so let's now then contextualize this work a bit. We are in the middle of global pandemic. So 2 months ago, my presentation would have been somewhat different. But let's see what are the things, how design thinking and systemic approach could help us in understanding and solving the pandemic-related challenges and building more robust and sustainable world after the post-pandemic. Okay, like this. So we have 3 main steps. So the first step is the acute step, which is the ongoing situation right now. How to enable the health and survival of the population. That's the most important, most critical thing. And during this whole crisis, how to ensure the trust in the society within the institutions, between the population and the institutions, and internationally between the countries. So we need to enable the collaboration with different level of entities. That's absolutely crucial. On the second phase, when we start to get on the better side of the pandemic, we need to enable rapid uptake of the economy to avoid collateral damage in human lives and well-being and economical well-being, which eventually in our societies at some point end up being the same thing. So how to enable rapid uptake in sustainable manner. But while we are doing the number 1 and number 2, we already need to start to think about the number 3, how to ensure that the world that we are going to build after pandemia supports sustainable goals. So we want to ensure that we are rebuilding our society to future and not to the past. And there you need the understanding of the interdependency of different kind of actors and institutions, and also linkages between your own actions and the long-term goals. So we have divided things that are contributing to the directions of the change. So currently it's very, very difficult to say what kind of societal impact eventually this pandemia will leave. It's quite obvious that it will have massive economical impact to our society, and there are different kind of components within society which are currently floating, and we don't know to what kind of positions and locations they will eventually set when the flood starts to go down. But in the key roles again are the trust among the institutions, trust internationally, and the things that are challenging this trust is that many countries are in very different kind of positions and situations with the recovery from the pandemic. When we start rebuilding the societies, and we want to build the societies towards the future and not towards the past, we need to make sure that the investments, that the funds that are now being enormous amounts of funds that are being used for the economical recovery are actually projecting to the carbon neutrality targets in the future. Otherwise, we will have these investments to be made again in some years' time. So now there's a window of opportunity when some parts of the system are going to be broken, to rebuild them to match for the need of the carbon-free society. So the things that we need to do is to identify so-called shovel-ready projects, the projects which can be studied now, which employ people and rebuild and renew some of the key structures which enable the carbon-free societies, and identify those long-term competitive paths where the progressive investments actually pay back. And we should avoid carbon lock investments which keep us using the fossil-based energy for longer time that is currently intended, and then avoid creating innovation dead ends on technologies which are doomed to disappear within a decade or two. And also avoid sacrificing the long-term goals for the short-term quick economical wins, because the main target now, we have two main targets. Short-term, we need to get the economy running, but we need to build the competitive advantage for Finland and Nordics and Europe, and eventually show example for the rest of the world that the carbon-free societies also are functioning and prosperous economies. So systemic understanding takes time, it takes multidisciplinary approach, and it needs collaboration. And a couple of tips as the last things of my presentation for each individual and each institution that you might represent. So it's very important to recognize your own relative strength, what you are good at, and not good at in comparison to others, but what's the thing that you feel that you're best at. You have the talent and you have the passion to do that. And then find a way how to utilize your relative strength to build socially, economically, and ecologically sustainable society and lifestyle. Then also pay specific attention whose opinions you listen to. There are so many people, so many instances telling you what to do and telling you how you should think about things. Be very critical on the sources that you rely on to, and the people close to you, even though they would be your loved ones, might not be always right in these matters also. So build a personal vision that includes the earth and the human systems. You don't have to make a PowerPoint presentation out of it, but use a bus trip to home or to school thinking about that. And then as a student, study those things that you feel that matter and demand teaching from those topics. Schools always drag a little bit behind of the actual needs of the society. So it's actually your responsibility to talk to your teachers and demand teaching from those topics that you consider that are critical. Study by yourself, use only the best sources, and start project and engage other people to your projects and teach the things that you have learned to other people. Be idealistic, be brave and stubborn, and still you have to be able to collaborate well, because we cannot really solve systemic problems alone. Okay, I think that I've talked long enough, so thank you. Hope you all stay healthy and safe, and all the best. Thank you.